Hey guys, welcome back. So to cash in on last week's insanely popular shaved intake video, you guys really seem to love it. I'm gonna go ahead and keep the ball rolling on that one this week. Remember I talked about it a little bit in the last video, was doing a DIY on a throttle bracket. So if you recall, we did do a throttle bracket on this intake. However, I want to do another one that was slightly redesigned from that. And the reason being is, to do this one, I actually had to kind of just notch out the side of this intake here. Also, just the way it mounts, it uses a couple mounting holes that on a previous one that I did on the BMW are not there. So if you guys recall, when we did the BMW, we went ahead and reutilized the old EGR location, put the air intake temp sensor in there. So we can't actually use that hole. We can use the top one for the evap sensor, but I'd have to cut this out and just kind of redesign it all. A little more work than I want to do right now. Eventually, I do want to get a different intake. I want to go sheet metal intake on this one and be able to put the original OG hood back on there. As much as I love the scoop, you know, just to clear the truck intake there, I do want to go ahead and put an intake on there that can clear the original hood. In the meantime, I'd like to redesign my throttle bracket. So on this one, we just have this piece of flat stock that was bent up at a 90-degree angle, drilled a hole for to mount it with the fuel rail, and then drilled a 5/16 hole for the low car universal throttle cable, and that's all it is. So the reason I want to redesign this is, if you see, we only have one mounting location there, which it's actually, as long as you torque that down and we use a serrated head bolt, you can't move it. But I don't like the fact that there's only one mounting location. I would prefer two, just to, you know, kind of triangulate it so it can't move. And I mean, this is just ugly. Get you as best look at it as possible. It's just ugly. It was designed out of immediate necessity, so I didn't put a whole lot of time into it. I mean, it was a piece of flat stock hammered into a 90-degree angle, a couple quick holes drilled in it. So as you can see, not a lot of time went into it. So I want to take this opportunity to redesign this one. And my thoughts on it were to kind of triangulate that position. The only other hole I have that's anywhere near it that's usable and would be usable on almost any intake is going to be the other mounting location for the fuel rail. So thoughts are, span that length and then come up to the throttle bracket. So it'd actually be the entire length. We have a mounting location here, and then we'd have the bracket. So keeping that in mind, that's kind of what I want to design for this one. So that's what we're going to work on today. It should be a really easy, simple project. Draw it out real quick, kind of get a rough idea for it. And I don't like drawing things out. See, I'm kind of like a all action all the time, instant gratification kind of guy. So you don't see me draw many things out. It's all just mostly in my head. I can see it, I design it, and I think about it in my head. And then I just start putting it onto the metal. I start putting it onto the medium. I don't ever really take the time to draw it out. I know I make a lot of little mistakes that way, but it's just the way my mind processes it. So this time I'm gonna try to draw it out a little bit at least, and then see how good of a product I can design just doing it that way. So let's see how it goes. So I know this isn't paper, but it's close as we're gonna get right now. I did draw it out, so I will show you guys that. So this is kind of the idea I came out with in my head, and this is what it comes out to on a piece of flat stock. So what we have here is 1/8 inch by 1 inch flat stock mild steel, and I marked off the locations where the holes need to be drilled. So we're actually, that one's centered. So at least now I know my holes will be drilled right. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is drill out those two hole locations, and I put in this mark here because we're actually gonna notch it, just because this hole here and this whole section after that is nothing more than to keep this bracket from walking anyway, just keeping it straight. So I also want to kind of minimize this as much as possible, make this look as nice as possible. So we actually might thin it out even a little more than that, like replicate this on the other side, just because it's not necessary to have all that material there, and I'm gonna kind of take it down to the bare minimum and just make it look cleaner. Now after that, what we have here is a couple more marks. This mark here is exactly 1.5 inches past the mounting hole here. And what we're gonna do is, at this point, kind of hard to see, but we're gonna bend this at a 45-degree angle upward, and then another 45-degree angle. So this is approximately 1.5 inches, and at a 45-degree angle upwards, it's gonna protrude out 1 inch. So we're gonna lose about 1 inch there. And then we have another 1 inch, which will bring us up to about the same level as this. So that's about 1.5 inches high. This one's actually a little higher, but we're actually gonna go down more in line with this because I like to keep it down and nice and clean. So we're gonna actually keep this one about the same, and it's gonna be about 1 inch, or it's gonna be about 1.5 inches higher than this plate is now. So we're gonna bend it up, and then we're gonna come up at a 90. It should end us right about here, right before where this one's at. Remember, it's not for this one, it is for that car, so just kind of ignore that this is here. So a really quick oversimplification of how this bracket is. Here's our design. This is actually going to run across the fuel rails to the 2 mounting points. So we have our screw here, and this is where the flat of the bracket will enter a 45 forward and then a 45 up, and that'll give us our 90-degree. Like I said, this portion of it may need to bend towards the intake slightly, so we may have to weld another section onto that piece. So we'll probably have to put another piece, weld another piece onto the side of that, towards the intake side of it, just to extend it out a little further, or we'll just cut the whole top of it off and weld another piece onto the top, just a flat piece all the way across to kind of show you guys as we start building it. But like I said, I can draw things too. It looked about the same in my mind, it was just missing the grid lines. Now, it was just to bend it by hand now that I put that leaf cut in. So we're gonna measure that, make sure that's at a 45-degree angle, and do the same thing up here. All right, close enough. Really close to the 90 there. All right, so we have the rough shape taken care of on there. We have our 45 degrees. Now all we have to do is, besides cleaning this up a little bit, drill our 2 holes, and then we're gonna have to, like I said, weld on a piece to bring this back over, because we're gonna want this to come up and over this way. So we're just gonna weld on a piece to the side here. And that's actually how I'm also gonna get part of my gusset and strengthen this up a little bit. Once we go ahead and clean this up, drill our holes, we're gonna go ahead and gusset weld in these 2 bends to make sure they're nice and strong. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up real quick. I must say, it cleans up pretty nice. So throw that right on top of the fuel rail. I mean, we actually lined up with the old bracket, the old new bracket, pretty good. So you can see, boom, look how good that is. That's just eyeballing for the most part. So this actually, right about here is actually where the factory location is for it. It doesn't really matter because our low car kit allows us to run it farther back if we'd like. So we're actually just about perfect in line with the throttle bracket. So we're actually a little farther over, which this one's actually a little farther in than this center line. So actually got a much better pitch on there. So look how shiny that is. I rebuilt the throttle body the other day too. Took it apart because it was just caked. But I mean, look at it. Polished it up. It's shiny. You can see reflection in there. Hi. But yeah, so that's a pretty simple DIY throttle cable bracket. So easy enough to do. Practically just one piece of metal other than trying to extend this over. You could run it from here. I would only say if you were gonna run it without putting this additional bracket on, then I would just tweak it to the side a little bit. So that way you're not coming out and then coming at an angle. The low car cable will actually come out at an angle. So just in case you guys are wondering, this is the low car cable. So this is a universal throttle cable. They're about 25, 30 bucks on Amazon. You can get them in like a 36-inch length. They're really good universal throttle cables. They make really nice parts. We run them, we have them here on the BMW as well as on the El Camino. But I think that's gonna do it for today's video. Just a real simple DIY. You guys seem to like them, so we'll keep making them. So if you have suggestions for something that you'd like to see a DIY for on this channel, drop it in the comments below. Message us on Facebook. We'll get back to you on that stuff. If there's something you guys wanna see, we wanna make it. So in the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.